Hi guys, welcome back. We're just going to continue on with this theme of fellowship, and I just want to recap what we've just looked at. So these two cultural significances of the word koinonia, where we get fellowship. The first one being two men going into business, selling everything that they have so that they can go into this business partnership with one another. It's something of complete vulnerability and trust with one another. And the second being two people entering holy matrimony with one another, getting married, and the eternal commitment that brings in, that no matter what happens, we're going to stand by one another, we're going to love one another. And together, this is what I believe Luke is referring to when he says they devoted themselves to the fellowship. It's not simply tea and coffee and a general chit chat. It's an eternal commitment to one another, devoted to one another, and giving up everything to rely completely on one another, to serve and to live. That is fellowship. That is biblical fellowship, what they devoted themselves to, and it's world changing if we get it right. But what I want to take us to today is Jesus' example of this koinonia. And I think if you've just heard what I've just said and taken it in, you're probably thinking that is impossible to do with an entire congregation. Dan, how's that supposed to work? And to be honest, I don't think it's meant to work like that with an entire fellowship within a church, if that's what you want to call it. But it can work with a select group of people, of individuals. And if we look at Jesus' example here, Jesus didn't have this level of koinonia, or I don't believe he did, with his entire disciples, but he did definitely have it with the three, Peter, James and John. And I'm just going to show us this in the passage in Matthew 26 where Jesus prays in Gethsemane, and he brings Peter, James and John with him. And Jesus here in verse 38 in chapter 26, he says, "Then he said to them, 'My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me.'" And just imagine that, the Saviour of the world, just about to die for the sin of the world, coming to three people. They've been looking at him for leadership the entire time, and he's like, "You know what, guys, I need you to come and just pray with me for a second, because I'm so mournful. Like, I could just do with you here." The openness of Jesus, imagine what that did to their fellowship. Imagine how much Jesus trusted them and was with them in this time, knowing as well that Peter was going to deny him. He still chose to do that and was still chose to be vulnerable with them. And then just moments after, we see the other side to the coin of this eternal commitment, where stuff gets wrong within relationship, because the disciples, they can't stay awake, can they? They keep on going to sleep, and Jesus is like, "Can you not just watch with me for a while?" And I know there's some significance in that, and Jesus wanted to teach them something. Maybe it's something to do with how to deal with grief and suffering within the world, and what he was about to do. But just even the basic level of that text there is that the disciples couldn't do what he was asking them to do, even in his biggest time of need. And yet Jesus was still there, committed to him, and they were still there, committed to one another. So let's take a look at this passage today and just see what we can learn from it. And think about our own koinonia and what that might look like.